Today, we're getting into something really interesting, the challenges and, well, the opportunities of doing business in a pretty unique place, Los Alamos.
Right. It's a town we know has this huge potential, obviously linked to the lab, but it also seems to have its own, let's say, specific hurdles for the local business community.
Exactly. And like we always do, we're going straight to the source material.
Mhm.
One of our listeners pointed us towards a really insightful resource.
Yeah, it's the transcript from the Los Alamos Local Business Coalition Forum, number 3 specifically. And this one was all about the rules and regulations and, crucially, how they get interpreted.
So it really digs into the business environment there. You've got business owners, county reps, community members all weighing in.
It's a great snapshot.
So think of this as your shortcut to understanding what's really going on. We've waded through the whole forum transcript to pull out the key themes, the frustrations, the proposed solutions, even some of the tensions simmering beneath the surface.
Our mission today is basically to unpack those different viewpoints. We want to get a real handle on the core issues shaping the business landscape in Los Alamos. How do the rules, and maybe more importantly, how they're applied, affect the local economy?
Okay, let's dive in. The forum kicked off with some pretty significant opening remarks, didn't it? Leslie Link introduced a letter from James Warnick.
Yeah, Warnick's part of the coalition steering committee, and his letter, well, it really set the tone.
It did. His main argument, basically, was that maybe Los Alamos is focusing too much on the process, sometimes, maybe, at the expense of getting good results for the economy.
He suggested a mindset shift, didn't he? Moving from just asking, is this allowed, towards asking, does this actually help?
Yeah, that's a fundamental question about the whole approach, really.
And it ties right into what the Los Alamos Local Business Coalition itself is trying to do. They frame their mission as collaborative, working with the county to make things better for business.
That's right. Not adversarial. It's about partnership.
Exactly. And it seems there's some buy-in because the county council apparently voted to engage with this city's work aimed at improving county processes.
That's a positive sign. Shows maybe a willingness on both sides.
Yeah.
And the coalition had already flagged their top 5 challenges before this, right? So these issues weren't exactly new.
No, these forums are their way of gathering the data, the real stories. The idea is to take all this input back to the county, the LACDC, the chamber.
LACDC being the Los Alamos Commerce and Development Corporation?
Right, and then hopefully work together on solutions. This specific forum, Forum 3, was laser-focused on the existing rules and how they play out, especially what they call the LA process.
Which seems to be shorthand for all those interactions with the county, permits, inspections, zoning, you name it.
Pretty much. And this wasn't a one-off. They planned more forums, one on tools and strategies, another to wrap things up and make action plans. Sounds quite organized.
It does. A structured approach.
Yeah.
So after those opening points, they heard from Steve Shaw.
Ah, yes. Steve Shaw. A local businessman, longtime resident, 49 years in architecture and development there.
Nice.
Well, that's some serious perspective.
No kidding. And his starting point was interesting, suggesting the county itself is kind of like a business with its own challenges.
That's a good frame. Reminds you there are different sides to the story. He also shared a bit about his own start, coming up through an apprenticeship. Not the typical route, maybe.
And his core advice for businesses. Very practical.
Yeah. Get a good lawyer, a good CPA, a good bookkeeper, essential team members, basically.
He also made a great point about, even good ideas need research. Like expanding your business isn't just straightforward. He used Shannon Sitabach's example, needing a bathroom addition.
Right, and the unexpected hurdles and costs that can pop up. It's relatable.
Then he talked about the building codes, the International Building Code, or IBC.
And how complex it is. Plus, it gets updated every 3 years.
Wow, that's frequent.
Yeah, so businesses really need to understand the processes involved. He actually suggested the county could do a presentation on navigating all that. Seems like a sensible idea.
He gave some historical context, too, about the lab focus initially making local businesses feel a bit like, what did he say, second-class citizens?
Yeah, but he also seemed to believe the process, the codes, are ultimately there for protection, not just to block things, for safety, for the public.
And he brought in his experience from the YMCA board, stressing how important a good board is.
Right. And he noted that this business coalition exists now perhaps because businesses haven't always felt heard or, taken at face value in the past. That feeling seems to be a recurring theme.
Okay, so after Steve Shaw, we heard from John Courtright.
Another longtime local business owner, J&L Self-Storage, a family operation also with a long history in Los Alamos.
And he picked up on some of Shaw's points immediately, right? The history, the impact of the internet on retail.
Yeah, he echoed that. And he actually gave Steve Shaw a nod, saying Shaw was good at helping navigate the county stuff, not by bending rules, but by understanding how to work within them.
That highlights the value of having experienced mentors in the community, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Someone who knows the ropes.
Definitely. And Courtright reinforced the coalition's aim. Better relationships, better understanding between businesses and the county, like inspectors and the development folks.
He did share some positive feedback, too, which was good to hear,
Yeah.
about contractors finding Los Alamos easier to work with now compared to nearby places.
Yeah, he specifically mentioned Anne Laurent's positive influence since she took on her role, so maybe some progress there.
But then he shared that sob story, as he put it.
Right, the homeowner with the retaining wall, plans approved, then boom, major unexpected problems and costs, then issues with the HVAC system.
Ouch. That really drives home the impact of, well, inconsistency or maybe poor communication in the process.
Totally. And his point was clear. The county's job is ensuring rules like the IBC are followed, not making arbitrary calls based on personal feelings.
He also mentioned these newer county meetings for businesses before they sign leases or start building, to get clarity on current codes up front.
Which sounds helpful. He also floated the idea that maybe the county's short-staffed, which could explain some delays.
And he gave that example of a contractor kind of stuck on product specs, even though the overall project met code,
Yeah.
suggesting maybe a need for a bit more flexibility sometimes.
Possibly. His overall message, though, seemed to be about open communication. Report problems, he said, if rules seem misapplied or staff aren't doing their job.
Yeah, but he was realistic, too, acknowledging you can't just change the rules because someone had a bad day. A very balanced take, it felt like.
Yeah, pragmatic. Then the focus shifted with Anna Dillane. Her task was specifically about how the interpretation of codes hits small businesses.
And this is where things get a bit heavier.
Definitely. She talked about speaking to lots of people, hearing stories about conflicting instructions from different inspectors on the same job.
And her own experiences, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Multiple trips to the permit office, getting different answers each time. That sounds incredibly frustrating.
But the real kicker, the most concerning point she made,
Was the fear.
yeah, that every single person she asked to speak at the forum about these problems said no, because they were afraid of retaliation.
Wow. Not just business owners, but a former county councilor, too.
Exactly. And she admitted she was scared herself speaking out.
Well, that's a powerful statement about the perceived climate.
It really is. Her argument was that the code should be clear, leaving little room for interpretation, and answers should be consistent, no matter who you ask at the county.
She mentioned her own past issues, a sign problem years ago, and the difficulties that stopped her from buying the old Anderson Pharmacy building.
And she said this fear isn't just historical, it's current. Business owners being nervous about starting projects, even small ones like accessory structures. Right, because they worry about triggering scrutiny on existing stuff or maybe facing tougher enforcement if they've been vocal. The fact that people wouldn't speak publicly, she argued, says a lot.
It certainly casts a shadow.
Yep.
Okay, so after that quite sobering account, Allan Saenz stepped up. He owns businesses locally and is a big proponent of LEDA.
Right. LEN is the Local Economic Development Act. He acknowledged the past challenges Anna and others mentioned, but he also felt things had been trending more positively in recent months.
He actually gave concrete positive examples, didn't he?
Yeah, two recent ones. Getting approved for Pi 239 and sorting out the stage build at Sella. He presented those as smoother experiences working with the county.
That's encouraging. Shows improvement is possible.
But he balanced it too. Mentioned ongoing permit issues with his other venue, the Roxy Theater, so still some inconsistency there, it seems.
And he voiced frustration about just getting meetings scheduled with county staff. That initial step taking too long. A bottleneck.
Definitely. Then he really pivoted to LENISA. He clearly sees it as a key tool.
How did he explain his take on LEDA?
He framed it as a way for local government to basically invest in private projects if there's a clear public benefit, like activating the county's own economic plans. He really stressed the spirit of LEDA fostering growth, improving quality of life.
And he laid out the process for applying in Los Alamos.
Yeah, it sounded pretty involved.
Right.
Identify the project, get council review, create a detailed participation agreement spelling out the partnership.
Plus transparency, public input, staff assessment, signing off, and then providing some kind of security or collateral.
Right. He emphasized the flexibility within those agreements, loans, grants, using different funding streams, and that each project gets looked at individually.
Did he mention successes elsewhere?
He alluded to other communities using LEDA effectively for things like job creation and economic diversification.
Okay, so his closing message was basically, let's interpret rules in a more business-friendly way and actually use tools like LEDA to achieve the county's stated goals.
Pretty much. Move from planning to action using the tools available.
Got it. Then Shannon Shadabaka offered her perspective. More of an encouragement, it sounded like.
Yeah, very much a call for collaboration. Her analogy about the county not being clairvoyant was quite effective.
Meaning businesses need to be really clear about what they need, have a specific ask.
Exactly. She stressed getting everyone, businesses, the county on the same page, and she saw the business coalition's role as building that bridge through communication.
Makes sense. Relationships are key, she said, even with government.
Her focus was definitely on moving forward, building positive connections, being part of the solution, not just dwelling on past negatives.
She acknowledged, every town has its challenges. The goal is just making Los Alamos as supportive as possible.
And I liked her chemistry lab analogy.
Right. Differentiating between non-negotiable safety rules and rules where maybe there's room for interpretation to help things work better, to encourage positive outcomes.
Her final plea was just for everyone to work together, aiming for a sustainable, growing business environment.
Okay, so that covers the main presentations. Then they opened it up for Q&A and discussion. What were some key points there?
Well, someone asked about attracting more architects. Anne Laurent suggested reaching out to the American Institute of Architects. Pretty practical advice.
Steve Shaw chimed in again too, didn't he?
Yeah, pointing out the county's community development department is actually certified by the International Building Council, and permit times are generally okay. He saw this whole discussion as positive feedback for improvement.
Janice Krish talked about LEDA again.
Right, emphasizing the letter versus the spirit of the law, saying the core intent is business growth and prosperity for the community.
And Anne Laurent responded directly to Anna Dillane's points about fear.
Yes, it sounded quite heartfelt. She stressed the county is committed to listening, that feedback isn't taken personally. But she also explained the state's original focus for LEDA was more on manufacturing, and the county has to be careful with public money, ensure fair access.
That's an important context. Allan Saenz also clarified his stance on LEDA.
Yeah, he was very clear. He wouldn't do another LEDA deal under the old conditions. He wants a true partnership. And he mentioned his new vision is more tourism-focused, involving multiple groups.
The discussion also got into the specifics of LEDA, like clawbacks and security.
Right. And Laurent explained the security needed is proportional to the funding asked for. It could be a LEDA, letter of credit, escrow.
And Janice Krish added that the clawback amount usually goes down over time as the business meets its commitments.
And Laurent also stressed the collateral has to have real market value, be collectible, which led Allan Saenz to suggest maybe performance itself should count as security. An interesting thought.
Shannon Sadaka brought up keeping key businesses for quality of life, mentioning Susie Buffett's positive comments about Sela.
But then John Courtright offered a different view, expressing frustration with the state government, especially about road infrastructure.
And he raised concerns about regulations like the Family Leave Act and issues like Medicaid cliffs impacting small businesses dealing with labor shortages, real practical challenges.
Shannon Sadaka actually agreed with him, saying the coalition needs to voice concerns about unintended consequences of policies, even well-meaning ones.
There was a comment from someone wanting more restaurants, too.
Yeah, saying their fear wasn't the county so much as just the tough restaurant business itself, high costs, property owner issues. They called for groundbreaking solutions in Los Alamos and were encouraged to join the coalition.
Janice Krish gave another nod to Sela as an anchor business.
And Anne Laurent talked more about security options for smaller retail businesses seeking LEDAs with owner cooperation, letters of credit, maybe even a regional collateral pool. But she reiterated the need for skin in the game, matching funds, and that collateral is tied up for the agreement, period.
Allan Saenz asked if collateral requirements were county rules or just preference.
Anne Laurent said it's more about industry standards and legal limits needing actual market value.
And then County Councilor Randall Wrighty spoke.
Yes, he thanked the forum, acknowledged the fear factor exists when dealing with the county. He encouraged people to reach out to any of the 7 counselors to start conversations, get things on the agenda, emphasized they do talk internally and want to listen.
Finally, Sobia Saida, a county employee, speaking as a resident.
Right. She praised Sila and really stressed building those human relationships with county staff, talking before making big commitments.
Okay, so pulling it all together.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway from this deep dive into the forum?
Well, it really paints a complex picture, doesn't it? You've got this mix of real enthusiasm and commitment, but it's running right alongside significant frustration and, like we heard, even some fears surrounding the rules, their interpretation, and things like LEDA.
That LA process definitely emerges as a central point of friction. Intended for compliance, sure, but perceived by many as unclear, inconsistent, maybe even a barrier. Warnick's question, is it allowed versus does it help, really captures that core tension.
Absolutely. And the theme that comes up again and again is the need for better communication, for understanding different perspectives. The coalition is clearly trying hard to bridge that gap between businesses and the county.
But that fear factor Anna Dillane highlighted is a serious obstacle. If people are afraid to speak up about problems, how do things actually get fixed?
Exactly. And while Allan Saenz pointed to some recent positive signs, those inconsistencies and frustrations obviously haven't disappeared entirely.
The whole LEDA discussion is fascinating too. It has potential, clearly, as an economic tool. But the implementation details, especially around security requirements and just having a clear, consistent process, seem crucial for getting wider buy-in.
Right. Businesses need to understand it's a serious agreement with obligations and risks, like those clawback provisions. It's not just free money.
So this leaves us, and you, our listener, with a pretty significant question to think about.
Yeah. Given Los Alamos's unique context, the science, the lab connection, what kind of really innovative approaches could actually bridge this gap between regulation, which is necessary, and fostering a truly vibrant local economy?
How can those fears we heard about be turned into opportunities? Opportunities for real growth, for building that dynamic local business scene everyone seems to want.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Something to mull over. We hope these insights were useful and maybe encourage you to look more into the Los Alamos Local Business Coalition if this resonates with you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.